I'd like to thank you all for taking the time today to review document management link and notes. As we move through the presentation today, if you have a question, please feel free to put that question in the chat window on the GoToWebinar panel, and we will address those questions at the end of the presentation today. So we're going to be reviewing two different products today. One is the notes product and the other is the document management link. You're going to see them in the same window when I open up the screens. Just know that you can buy these products separately, and I'll define the differences between the two products as we move through the presentation today. So I thought I would start with accounts payable. We often get the question how documents can be viewed within Sage 300 against the AP invoice entry. So that's why I'll start today with the AP invoice entry screen. So you notice that a box opened up beside the screen. So this window is the document management link and notes window. The first three boxes we're seeing here is the document management link product, and the bottom box with the green is actually the notes product. So you'll see them in this same window, but you can buy these products separately and you would just see a similar window. Right now I have this window as freeform. I can move it around the screen, but with this little pin mark, I can actually attach it to the screen. And this is beneficial if you're running multiple Sage 300 companies. You'll notice the bar is the same color as my company. So if you're going in and out or you have screens open for multiple companies, the document management link window will minimize, I'm sorry, pardon me, will minimize when you minimize your Sage 300 screen. So that's a fairly new feature in the latest edition of the document management link product. So what we're seeing here is I'm storing documents in a network folder. So out here on my network, I have a folder on my C drive that's called Orchid. Custom documents, and then I have AP documents. And then you notice I have a separate folder for each of my vendors. Document Management Link is sophisticated enough that if you go to store a document for a vendor that does not have a folder, then it will actually create the folder for us and then store the documents within that folder. So we can see for my vendor 1200, I have 5 documents stored. Even though I'm only storing these documents once, I can see those documents against multiple screens in Sage 300. And that's what I'm seeing here in this first box for vendor number. So what we're doing is we're linking that folder to the field on the screen in Sage 300. So based on the label of that field and the value that's displayed within that field, we're able to determine which documents we want to see. If I were to move this and change this to vendor 1400, I'm now seeing the documents for vendor 1400. So you can see these documents against any screen in any module of Sage 300 as long as that field is on the screen. So the next box I want to highlight is the PO number. So similar to my vendor number, I'm storing a copy of the purchase order. And because there's a purchase order number field on the AP invoice entry screen, I'm able to see that underlying purchase order. In a little bit, we'll go over to the purchase order screen and I'll show you that you'll be able to see the exact same document against the purchase order screen. Now, in some cases, you may only want to see a document against one particular screen. And what I've done here in the middle box is I've configured it against 2 fields. I'm filtering it against 2 fields, and I'm saying I only want to see that vendor number and document number combination. So if it's vendor 1200 and the document number 123, that's what I want to see in this box. Now you notice that box is empty because I wanted to show you how a user would go about storing a new document. We can see up here there is no document for this invoice 123. So all a user needs to do is click the Add button, and it's going to bring up your browse window. and they can browse to whatever folder they need to browse to find the document that they want to attach. You know, we often get the question, how does the document get scanned? So with Document Management Link, we're assuming that you already have that document in an electronic form. Nowadays, people have printers on their desks that can easily scan that document and turn it into an electronic file. But you could even have someone in the mailroom scanning documents when they're opening the mail. And oftentimes we'll suggest that maybe you create a suspense folder, and those documents can be scanned into that suspense folder. And then users that are within an entry screen like we are right now would know to just go to that one suspense folder to look for the document they want to attach. And they can just click on that document and drag it and drop it over the Document Management Link window. And you can see that in this case, the original document stayed there. If I hold down the Control key when I do that drag and drop, it will actually move the document. So it would move it out of that suspense folder and into the foldering system you've created for Document Management Link. So that could become like a check and balance for you, where anything that's sitting in the suspense folder either has not been attached to the transaction or that transaction hasn't been entered in the system yet. The other thing that happened when I did that drag and drop is you notice it changed the name of the document. And so that's a configuration option where I have said, I want you to actually rename the document based on the value within the document number field. So that's why it changed it to INB123. If we go back into my C drive, Orchid, custom documents, AP documents, and my vendor 1200, we'll see there's now a copy of that invoice 123 that's been filed into that folder for me. So it's quite simple for a user to attach a document straight from their Sage 300 screen, but we're not utilizing any space within your Sage 300 database to store these documents. I'm showing you an example using a network folder. But if you are storing documents in SharePoint, you would be able to use Document Management Link, and we would be linking it instead of from a network folder, we would be linking it from SharePoint. So if you're currently running SharePoint, even the free SharePoint Foundation, you can utilize it the same way as I'm showing you with a network folder. The final box we're seeing at the bottom here is the Notes product. So as I mentioned, the notes are sold separately, but very similar to Document Management Link, you're tying a note to a field on the screen. So in this case, this is based on the remit to location, and it's specific to this CTAC. So you can see it's -CTAC. So this is a note specifically based on the value within the remit to location field. So that's what it looks like against the AP invoice entry screen. Now, I mentioned that you can you can say, I only want to see things against a certain screen, or I want to see the information against all screens. So as an example, I could go into the vendor activity screen and call up vendor 1200 and see all of the documents associated with that vendor. So that will hold true for any screen in any module of Sage 300, as well as third-party products that are written using the software development kit. If you're not sure, the folks at BAASS would be able to tell you if that product is written with the software development kit. But we've also given a tool with this product that you can check on your own. This little icon at the bottom that has a key on it, when you open that up, you can click on any field on any screen, and it will actually tell you, let me just move this over. It will actually tell you the Roto ID, that's the screen ID. Each screen in Sage 300 or any other SDK product will have what we call a Roto ID. And so if it has that Roto roto ID and it has a field name, it means that you can configure document management link against that field or on that screen. So that's how you'd easily be able to tell if you can configure it against any other third-party product. If you happen to be running the Notes product and the document management link product, what we've done here is we've given you the ability to identify a document management link user. The Notes product is sold system-wide, so you just buy that product and you can use it system-wide. With document management link, there is a user license that's associated with that product, so you could easily signify the people that need to see documents by ticking this box, so that they're the only ones that are using a document management link license. Although you need a license to see it, it is similar to the Sage 300 LAN packs in the sense that it is concurrent, so it can be shared. If a user were to log in and all the document management link licenses were consumed, they would just see a message in the document management link window saying that there's no license to view the documents. And if someone were to log out, then they would be able to view those documents. So both of these products are installed under what we call Information Manager that has a number of different components to it, but Notes and Document Management Link are the two that we're reviewing today. So under the options, the Notes and Document Management Link hotkey is where you would come to do the configuration. And so if we look, for example, at that vendor document number configuration, you'll see that it's quite simple to set up. It's either a network folder or SharePoint when we're talking about Document Management Link, or if you're setting up a note, then it would be a type note. And then we're specifying if there's a roto ID, if I want to isolate it to one screen, then I would put a roto ID in here, and then I would only see those documents against the one screen. If I leave it blank, then it means that I want to see against all screens. So in the case of my vendor number, that's why I'm able to see those documents against any screen I open that has a vendor number field on it. And then we're putting a path to the folder. So I was storing it in my C drive, Orchid, custom documents, AP documents, and then this value, curly bracket, is referring to this field label. So what I'm saying here is create a folder based on the value. And so that was 1200. Vendor number 1200 is my value. So that's why I was able to see a separate folder for each of my vendor numbers. And when I said rename the file, this is an option that you don't have to configure, but I chose to say rename my file to value 2. Value 2 was my document number. And then the .ext means just leave it as whatever file type it was, Word, PDF, Excel. Don't change the extension on the document. And then the show alert would be the document management link window that opened up and it just sat on the screen for us. If we're talking about the notes, maybe you don't want the note to open up and sit on the screen. You know, typically with document management link, that's what we would advise, that you have it sit there on the screen for the user to be able to see the documents. But in the case of notes, you can choose to change the tray icon. So that's the key down here on my menu. So we can change that to a different color. We can make it blink, or we can say, go ahead and pop that note up. And we can say, you pop the note up and then show it and have it fade away automatically. Or in the case of document management link, you could say show it, meaning leave that note sitting on the screen for the user to see it. Now with the notes, you do have the ability to create different note categories and color code those so that, you know, users know very quickly based on the color of a note whether or not it's something that they need to read. And you can also create different note types. So you can say, you know, these are customer notes. Let me just open this Finder up. Customer notes, order notes, remit to notes. So you can all have all different types of notes. And then you can, under the roles, you can specify, you know, for each role, what they can do with those notes, whether they can add new notes, whether they can view the existing notes, whether they can edit those notes, or whether they can delete notes. So you can have as many different roles here as you want. So if we look at the AP group, they can view customer notes, but they can't do anything else with it. Whereas vendor notes, they can add new notes, edit notes, and so on. So you can have as many different roles here as you need and specify by note type what they can do with those notes. And then under the user roles is where you would say, you know, the people in AP, these are the users. So you can assign a role to each of your users so that you know what they can do with the notes and what they can't do with the notes. So that's all there is to the setup of Information Manager. So I keep saying that you can do anything in any module on any screen. So there are just a couple of limitations. First, we'll go to the PO transactions, and I'll just show you that even though I have that purchase order stored one time, I'm able to see that same purchase order here against the purchase order entry screen. So it's all based on whether or not a field is available on a screen. And even though, like in this case, it's an auto-numbered field, we can still store information against that. You would just save it so that it brings up the number, and then you would store the document against that number. You can also decide, by the way, the order in which these boxes appear in the document management link window. You can specify what order you'd like to see that in. So the only limitations here, if we go into an OE order entry screen as an example, I just want to show you that, let's just call up the first, I'll call it the last order. So what I'm seeing here is I can see a note for my location 1. So that's based on this field here, and based on the value in that field, I'm seeing the appropriate note. I'm seeing a copy of the purchase order because there's a purchase order number field here. I'm seeing a note against my customer 1200 as well. So that's based on this customer number field here. I actually know that I have an image for this desk lamp stored. Now, I can't see that information within an entry grid of Sage 300. We are working to improve that, and in version 2017, in some of these grids, we are now able to see the documents. But in some cases, when it's an entry screen like this, if you hit the function F9, it opens up the underlying screen, and that then makes this item number an open field, and you can see, now I can see the image of that item. So if the entry screen is one like this, where you can zoom into the underlying screen, then you can easily store documents against that field. The only other the limitation would be we can't configure against a drop-down list like this, and we can't configure around a checkbox like this. Pretty well anything else, though, we can configure against. I often get the question, are we going to be able to see this from the general ledger module? And the answer to that is yes, when you have the zoom capability. So if I go into a general ledger batch, and I can see this is a source transaction coming from the AP module, when I open that up, I have that zoom the drill down capability of Sage 300. So that means that I could click on that and drill down into the AP invoice entry screen, and now I can see those underlying documents even though I started in the general ledger module. So in the cases where you have a drill down, then you would be able to drill back down into this screen, and then you would be able to see the underlying documents associated with that. So that is the notes and document management link products. I typically get a lot of questions when I'm presenting this module, so we'll open up the chat and see if anyone has any specific questions with regards to the document management link and the notes. I am not seeing any questions coming into the chat window. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions come in. I know recently I had the question, would this work with the SharePoint Online? And the answer to that is yes. So if you happen to be using SharePoint Online, we can link to SharePoint.com as well. So if you're using the cloud solution for SharePoint, you'd be able to use this product with that. Okay, so it doesn't look like there are any questions. So we want to thank you all for attending today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. If you do come up with additional questions, then please feel free to contact your BAASS representative and we'll get an answer to you right away. So thanks very much, everyone, and have a